bit from your programs. And the next speaker who I have the honor to introduce is Professor Aviad Hacohen. Professor Aviad Hacohen is the president of the Academic Center for Law and Science, the former dean of its law school, and a senior lecturer on constitutional law and Jewish law at the Academic Center and the Faculty of Law of the Hebrew University. His research focuses on constitutional law, religion and state, human rights, and Jewish law. Professor Hacohen also founded and headed Mosaica, the Institute for the Study of Religion, Society, and State. Professor Hacohen is also an active lawyer and advocate and has represented petitioners before the Supreme Court of Israel in more than 150 cases, mainly in the fields of human rights in general, freedom of speech, and freedom of religion cases in particular. Beyond his impressive accomplishments, everyone I've spoken to who knows him considers Professor Hacohen just to be a lovely and kind human being. So it's my pleasure today, and let's give a warm welcome as he comes to discuss the Halachic struggle over Jerusalem, law, polemics, and politics. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I always say, if my father would enjoy it. If my mother would be here, she wouldn't even believe it. Thank you. You have to be either an idiot or a fool to speak after Professor Van-Leer. And I know that my good friend, Kadi Dr. Zchalka, is a very wise man. That's why he changed the order. So. But it is a pleasure to be here. And just had I know what Professor Van-Leer would speak about, I would say something maybe about Herr Rabbiner, the vulture, or about the Herzl attitude not to go into the Temple Mount, which is an halachic issue. I would relate only a bit of it, but this is also an halachic issue that had many controversies about it. Listening yesterday to the lecture of my dear friend Rabbi David Rosen, I nearly had a stroke. For Rabbi Rosen, speaking about Jerusalem in Jewish mind, had quoted many of the sources I was intended to include in my lecture. After all, my topic, the Jerusalem halachic struggle, or if you wish, Jerusalem in Jewish law, is also an integral part of Jerusalem in the Jewish mind. But thank God, Rabbi Rosen is always optimistic, and therefore he spoke mainly about the beauty of Jerusalem, the glory of the city, and its uniqueness. While I'm going to look a bit further at some other hidden corners of the town and pay attention also to the fights and controversies that appear in the same sources. In my view, all Jewish law sources on this issue reflect not only the old Jewish custom and habit of raising questions and arguing about any subject in the world, but also reflect Jerusalem's crucial place and importance in Jewish tradition and law and the sensitivity used in dealing with it. Jerusalem as a junction between sacred and secular, Jerusalem as a meeting point of Israel and the nations, Jews and non-Jews, local residents and foreigners. A colorful salad, fascinating combination and mixture of law, halacha, society, polemics, and even, God forbid, politics. Needless to say, in this lecture I will be able to focus only on very few issues. However, I can assure you that there are dozens of additional topics and examples that relate to the legal status of Jerusalem and create a whole world of controversies among rabbis, not especially the rabbis that Professor Van-Leer spoke about. As we know, the traditional character of Jews is 2 Jews, 3 opinions, and with rabbis we may say 2 rabbis, 5 opinions. So let's start with the image of Jerusalem as the city of peace. According to a very old Jewish tradition, the city of Jerusalem has only 70 names. One of them, famous, is Ir HaShalom, the city of peace. Many sources of Jewish law reflect to this fundamental idea of seeing Jerusalem as a city of peace. First of all, from the etymological point of view, in the first time in the Bible, and maybe in history, you can find a clue to Jerusalem, a clue in Genesis. Umalkitzedek melech Shalem, and Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine for Abraham and for the others. If Shalem, in Hebrew, the Hebrew word is Jerusalem, if, then we have here more than a clue to the connection between Shalem and Shalom, Shalem and peace. As many commentators say, Jerusalem Hebrew name today, Yerushalayim, is composed of two words, Yerushalayim, and its meaning, seek peace. More than that, in many chapters in the Bible, and after that in the vast Talmudic literature, Jerusalem is described also as the city of peace. Such, for instance, the very famous Psalm 122, a song of ascents of David. I was glad when they said to me, let us go to the house of the Lord. Our feet have been standing within your gates, O Jerusalem. And then, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May they be secure who love you. Peace be within your walls and security within your towers. For my brothers and companions' sake, I will say, peace be within you. Peace, peace, and again peace. Moreover, the verse, Yerushalayim habnuya ki ir shechubra la yachdav, Yerushalayim, built as a city that is bound firmly together, was interpreted by Jewish sages and in many Jewish law sources already in the Talmud. Jerusalem is a city that makes all of Israel friends. Looking at this lovely description, one of Jerusalem's sages in recent generations, a clever man asked, what a scene, what a picture! Such an ideal like Beethoven's Sixth Symphony, pastoral, such a wonderful picture. In Jerusalem, everyone, anytime, is your friend and my friend. But if so, why does the psalm speak about our feet that were standing in the gates of Jerusalem? Why not in Jerusalem itself? Why not in the heart of the city? His answer was simple, especially as one who was born in Jerusalem and knew all about Jerusalem's history of controversies and dispute. You can speak about Jerusalem as the city of peace only when you stand in the gates of Jerusalem, when you are in the railway station where Herzl stood. But once you enter the city, you will find peace, not only peace, but quarrels and disputes and controversies and struggles and fights, etc. So no longer Ir Shalom, the city of peace, but maybe Ir Shalom Alav Shalom, a city where peace no longer exists, but rather disputes and quarrels. No more Beethoven's Sixth Pastoral Symphony, but Beethoven's militant Fifth Symphony, which is war, trumpets, and battle horns. He may, of course, be exaggerating, but the truth is that looking at the history of Jerusalem, at least in the last only 3,000 years, one can write a book or many books, not about the city of peace, but also about the city of wars and disputes, struggles and fights, and its ongoing controversies. Religious disputes, social controversies, political wars, national fights, all in one small geographical place in Jerusalem. It is the same with our specific topic, the Halachic view of Jerusalem, or Jerusalem as it reflected in Jewish law. One of the most complex and interesting subjects, and a source of many Halachic controversies, is the sanctity of Jerusalem in general, and the sanctity of the Western Wall and the Temple Mount in particular. In the past, and may also today, to those trained in modern legal systems, the connection between holiness and law will sound somewhat strange. Usually, holiness is a concept drawn from the world of religion, theology, and spirituality, whose source of authority and its content are radically different from those of secular legal systems. Nonetheless, the legal system in Israel, as in other Western democratic and liberal countries, often has to rule on cases that appear to belong to the world of holiness. In contrast of modern liberal legal systems, Jewish law is considered by many scholars, not all, as a religious legal system, such that the connection between holiness and law appears natural. Within the halachic codes, one finds dozens of laws that bear the imprint of sanctity. For instance, the Rambam Maimonides, the great codifier of Jewish law, even named one of the 14 volumes of his monumental Mishneh Torah the Book of Holiness. As you may know, of the wide range of laws dealing with holiness, a significant number of them deal with the holy places in Jerusalem. First of all, Temple Mount area, but also the whole city of Jerusalem as well. The Bible describes the sanctification of specific places. Some, like Mount Sinai, became holy on a temporary basis, while others, such as Jerusalem, the Temple Mount in the Western Wall, acquired, according to most rabbis, not all of them, a permanent sanctity. Hundreds of halachot laws related to appropriate behavior at these holy sites, whose sanctity also influenced their legal status. The centrality of the Holy Land in general, and Jerusalem in particular, for pilgrimage and religious activity, as well as in political and religious dispute, brought the issue of Jerusalem's sacred places to the attention of religious leaders and military commanders, kings, politicians, diplomats, and also the Supreme Court of Israel. But what is the nature of the holiness of Jerusalem and how it is brought into being? Does every place, even the Van-Leer Institute in Jerusalem, has the potential to become a holy place? Does this sanctity remain forever? Or does it cease with the cessation of central religious ceremonies or due to other circumstances? Is the definition of Jerusalem as a holy place dependent on some objective test, or is it a subjective definition? Given the diversity that exists within Jewish law, there is no one clear-cut answer to these questions. To the contrary, there exists a range of positions, some of them conflicting, regarding the Jewish legal view of the sanctification of places. The Hebrew term kedusha, holiness, sanctity, heiligkeit, related to Jerusalem, is a term with a number of meanings, both linguistically and substantively. At a linguistic level, the Hebrew term kedusha, holy, and the verb lekadesh, to sanctify, has many meanings in different contexts. Needless to say, Jerusalem as a holy place does not exist alone, as it found within the larger family of holiness that pertains to the various elements, places, people, and even God. Therefore, anyone seeking to scrutinize the nature of Jerusalem as a holy place in the halachic field and its standing in Jewish tradition cannot limit the examination to the term by itself, but rather must integrate it into a more inclusive weave of holy things, of which holy places is but one of them. A methodological and thorough studies of the phenomenon of Kedusha in its various contexts in the world of Halacha demonstrates that there are many parallel lines between the various objects of holiness, despite their appearance in many and varied contexts. Hence, the importance even for the clarification of the question of a holy place. In this regard, attention must be given to the literal dictionary meaning of the term. An examination of Jewish sources reveals that the term has many meanings. Therefore, in examining a particular source, attention must be paid not just to the straightforward interpretation of the text, but also to the context in which it appears, as only through such study is its significance likely to become clear. For many sources, it is apparent that the sanctification, the Hakdasha, must be accomplished in an active manner. At times, it appears to be a one-time act, but in other cases, it is grasped as an ongoing multi-stage process. From the study of various Jewish sources, we learn that there are different levels of holiness as well. Determination of the level of holiness of a given place is likely to stem from the source of the holiness, whether it is from the Torah, the highest normative level of the world of Halacha, or only from the rabbinic law, from the sages, a lower normative level, or from the use made of the sanctified place, the more important the function it fulfills in religious life, the greater its level of sanctity. Even a place in Jerusalem that was sanctified long ago, such as the Western Wall, can rise in its level of holiness through the certain act. Thus, inclusion of an additional area within the walls of the city of Jerusalem may turn the apparent places into a holier place to which different norms may apply. Similarly, a certain geographical area of the land of Israel of Jerusalem that was conquered at the outset only by individual conquest, an act initiated by the king, but not by force of divine command, may rise in its level of holiness when it becomes a public conquest conquered by the entire public. Similarly, the street of a city used purely for public gatherings or a house of study used only for the study of Torah may rise in holiness with its transformation into a place of prayer or a synagogue. As you probably know, one of the most recent and well-known religious, social, and halachic disputes in Israel and among Jews all over the world concerns the Western Wall and the possibility of the Woman of the Wall or women's prayer or non-Orthodox prayer in its plaza. Some aspect of this dispute turn on the halachic question as to whether the place is only an historical site, a national monument, or should it be regarded as a synagogue or holy place, with all of halachic implications arising from that status. The answers to these questions rely usually on halachic arguments, but many of them are influenced, if not motivated, by non-halachic reasons, namely political reasons. The same pertains with respect to the question and to the rabbinical controversy or whether it is permitted today, from an halachic point of view, for Jews, like Herzl, to enter the Temple Mount, or at least to some parts of the Temple Mount. Many rabbis, mainly ultra-Orthodox, Haredim, but also some prominent religious Zionist rabbis, as well as the chief rabbis of Israel, think that there is a severe halachic prohibition, Isur Karet, to enter nowadays to the whole Temple Mount area. Maybe Herzl knew that. However, other rabbis, mainly religious Zionists from Rabbi Kook's school, think that it is not merely permitted, but it is a must and duty to do so, at least in some parts of the Temple Mount. Again, each one of these rabbis from both sides brings sources of Jewish law from Jewish law to support his opinion. But a deep search of the different halachic opinions reveals that behind the formal halachic arguments, there are political reasons that undergo transformation and becomes halachic consideration. Sometimes a halachic approach increases the sanctity of some places in Jerusalem so much that they are compared to the sanctity of the holiest place to the Jewish people, the Holy Temple. Do not forget that the Western Wall was only an ancient limestone wall in the old city of Jerusalem. The wall was originally erected only as part of the expansion, not the original part of the second Jewish temple begun by Herods. In spite of these historical facts, many Jews and even many halachic authorities attribute greater importance and sanctity today to the Western Wall than to the Temple Mount. Moreover, a place may descend in its level of holiness as a result of a change in the function that it fulfills due to a historical process or due to other factors. According to the opinion of some of the sages, the destruction of the walls of the city of Jerusalem reduced the level of holiness of the geographic area, including within them. This is the case regarding the holy site that was destroyed. As with the linguistic meaning of Kedusha, holiness or sanctity, the substantive meaning of Kedusha also has many meanings in different contexts. Dozens of definitions have been offered over the centuries, both in Jewish law and in other legal systems, for the term Kedusha, holiness. Some would define Kedusha as a positive sense and see it as deriving from the power of an action. Paradoxically, a grave which according to halacha causes one to become tameh or ritually impure may be considered as a holy place in the eyes of the masses and thus become a focal point for pilgrimage. This paradox led the Rambam to steadfastly oppose pilgrimage to the graves of the righteous. And that's what he writes about this. We do not build monuments of the graves on the graves of our righteous. The words are their memorial. And a person shouldn't make a habit of visiting graves. Of course, the state of Israel, speaking about state and religion in Israel, officially recognized the Rambam's presumptive resting place in Tiberias as a holy place, and it has also become a site for pilgrimage. Similarly, many graves in Jerusalem, such as the King David tomb on Mount Zion, or Zechariah the prophet's tomb in the valley of Kidron, became for many rabbis holy sites, while the other rabbis see them as idolatry places. According to many Jewish sources, the sanctity of Jerusalem goes back to the Akedah, or even earlier, to the creation of the world, to the moment that Abraham bound his son Isaac upon the Mount of Moriah, Har Moriah, and established it as a place that God will choose as the site of the Holy Temple. But the holiness of Jerusalem today is a subject to controversy and debate among the rabbis for more than 1,500 years. Maimonides, for instance, maintains that the sanctification of Jerusalem by Kings David and Solomon remain in force for all time. This is due to the fact that the holiness is a result of the Shekhinah, God's presence, which according to Jewish tradition will never depart the city. But other prominent rabbis, such as the Rabbid of Poshkap from Provence, think that Jerusalem is no longer sanctified. According to this opinion, when the land of Israel was re-sanctified in the time of Ezra, the sanctification was not a permanent nature. Let's refer to another subject, to what is the Jerusalem, what are the boundaries of Jerusalem. Strange as it may seem, there is no consensus, there's no halachic consensus about what the boundaries of Jerusalem, not only in the political sphere, but only in the halachic sphere, what is Jerusalem for the purpose, for halachic purposes, such as the duty to give the second teeth, Maaser Sheni. As written in the Bible and was customary in the temple in Jerusalem, the second teeth involved the setting aside of 1/10 of specific agriculture produce during the first, second, fourth, and fifth years of each 7-year cycle for the purpose of taking it to the holy city of Jerusalem and consuming it there. The optimal situation is that the teeth should be of grain, wine, and olive oil. But if the distance to Jerusalem made the transportation of these substances unreasonable, the monetary value of the teeth could be brought to Jerusalem instead and used to purchase anything edible that the owner desired to eat there. Meat, wine, beer, or whatever your soul desires, for a feast with the members of the person's household in the presence of God. But what is Jerusalem for this purpose? Does it include only the geographical area of the Temple Mount itself? Does it include the entire area within the walls of Jerusalem? Or does it also include the new neighborhoods outside the walls, New Jerusalem as well? The same question arises about reading the Megillah, the book of Esther, and the celebration of Purim, one of the most popular feasts in Jewish tradition. According to Halakha, to Jewish law, while in most places in Israel and abroad, one should read the Megillah and celebrate Purim on the 14th day of the Hebrew month Adar, in Jerusalem, he should do so a day later on the 15th day of Adar. But what is Jerusalem for this purpose? Does it contain the far remote neighborhoods in New Jerusalem of today, such as Ramot, Gilo, or Har Choma? Prominent halachic poskim, rabbis, do not agree on this issue either. Some of them say that these neighborhoods are an integral part of Jerusalem. Some say that they are not. And as usual, some say that they are both inside Jerusalem and outside Jerusalem. And therefore, due to halachic uncertainty regarding this status, one has to celebrate Purim in these new neighborhoods of Jerusalem on both days, on the 14th and the 15th day of Adar. Let us conclude with a good example, the important question of the ownership of Jerusalem. In other words, one can ask, from an halachic point of view, does anyone has the legal right of ownership over the land of Jerusalem? And if so, who is the owner and what are the legal implications of this, his or her ownership? Already in the Babylonian Talmud, 1,500 years ago, we find a big controversy about this central question. According to Jewish law, when Joshua ben Nun conquered the land of Israel, he allocated the land to each of the 12 tribes, and this is the legal root of their ownership rights in the land. But which tribe received Jerusalem? According to one opinion, appearing in the Tractate Yoma, Jerusalem was not allocated to any of the tribes or divided up among them. From a philosophical point of view, but no less from a legal point of view, this is a revolutionary concept. Jerusalem does not belong to anyone. It belongs, if you want, to Klal Israel, to the nation of Israel, to the Jewish people in its entirely, and as one unit. Therefore, no one has ownership of Jerusalem. Therefore, anyone, or at least any Jew, can claim property rights in Jerusalem. Of course, according to another rabbi in the Talmud, Jerusalem was allocated among the tribes. Most of it, according to this rabbi, was given to the tribe of Yehuda, Judea, and a small part, but the most important part, the center of the Temple Mount area, was given to the tribe of Benjamin.